Building Bridges Across Systems from Birth to Third Grade. That is going to be moderated by Carla Bryant. The summary, this panel will share current efforts seeking to deepen alignment across early childhood and transitional kindergarten, TK through third grade, which is a formative and foundational period for children's lifelong trajectories and the important role that local organizations play in the lives of families, right? And then the conversations will include the benefits of creating these bridges across systems, promising the practices to meet the diverse needs of families. So a little bit about our moderator, Carla Bryant. She's the co-founder and executive director of the Center for District Innovation and Leadership in Early Education, which sits in Cultivate Learning at the University of Washington. Dr. Bryant has over 30 years of experience creating culturally competent policies, programs, and procedures, I know that's right, for early learners and families. So please join me in welcoming Carla and panelists.
Transition song.
Yes.
Got it?
Got it.
Okay. It's here.
I think you're. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Is it on? I can't tell if it's on. I want you to know we spent the first 30 minutes. I'm vain. I told him I am not walking across that stage with a cane, so we worked out a plan. Did not talk about the panel. How do we get on the stage without tripping and falling? Very important. I have to say, I'm very excited to be back at the water cooler. Yes. For this particular panel, yesterday we heard a lot of theory, we heard a lot about the work we should be doing, but today we're going to start off with what does it look like on the ground to implement the actual theories. And I want to tell you ahead of time, it's messy, but it's good. To build some context for this panel, I'm going to do it in 3 ways. One, I want to actually shine a light on yesterday. There were some great highlights. And I have to say, the students showed us out. Did they not show out? I'm going to use their words to actually talk about some on-the-ground things that we all need to pay attention to when we're doing work across systems, across cultures, and across grades. So that's the first part, highlights from yesterday. And then why this panel? Why P3? P being prenatal, being preschool, just whatever you want to make that P, how you want to bound your work. And how do we do this across the ECE world into the K-12 world? And then, of course, we're going to have our panelists describe for you how they are doing this work. And the great thing about our panelists, they're going to give you different ways in which to do it, which is one of the highlights that we learned from yesterday. There are more than one way to the promised land. We all don't have to do it the same way. And so they're going to show you how they're doing it in different spaces. So what were the highlights from yesterday? There were so many. So if I don't mention you, it's not personal, it's just I pulled out the highlights that resonated with Carla. So to actually look at the highlights from yesterday, I divided it into 3 different buckets. One bucket has to do with acknowledging the realities in which we are doing our work. And there are some true realities. The second way was, even with those realities, there are some good signs. There is some hopeful work going on out there. And then the third bucket I want to talk about from yesterday is there were some commonalities that were mentioned by each panelist around how we can do this work. They gave us some insight. So what are the realities? Carla Howell talked about how our population in California is declining. And we know that it has a direct correlation to what's going to happen with our budgets. We will not have this, it means we have decline going on in our schools. If we already know this, we need to be planning for what this looks like for in the future instead of just living with the decline. Christopher Nellam highlighted that we are still grappling with COVID, but it's like it never happened. But our children are showing us that they have been greatly impacted by it. And the children who were the farthest from ever getting to what we promised them are actually struggling even more now. Max and David Goldberg, our union, they just called it out. Our systems are inadequate. They don't work. They don't work for the children, they don't work for the families, and they don't work for the staff that are in there. But guess what? We are committed to keeping them going. Chris Chapman, what did he say? We spend a lot of time in this group talking about policy. We write policies. But what did he say? Culture eats policy every day. Tell me, how many policies have we changed but the behaviors stay the same? Subtle but underlining kind of stories that went through here is the use of data. Data is important. It's important, but are we collecting the right data? How are we using the data? What are the benefits? And though this was not mentioned, this is because I am the panel person, I'm going to just say this. How many ways do we need to collect the same data to say that the same set of kids are not doing okay? How about collecting data on the system? And this always confuses everybody. Now, what does she mean by that? How we do our work, the effectiveness of the policies that we actually create. Maybe we should flip the questions. How do we do what we do? And then Jonathan brought us back to reality. It's a deficit. But we've been here before, haven't we? But there is good work occurring. Martha Hernandez highlighted the 5 schools. I really want to know who those 5 school districts are, who have actually implemented something that people worked on for years, which was the DLL roadmap. That is something we have to celebrate. And I have to be honest, it's so good that I think it could be actually, there are parts in there that could be used for children of color other than DLL, because it has some great practices in there. And Chris, of course, talked about how his young kings are now on the board. I want you to take time to really ponder something he said. He has put over him the people that he serves. How many of you would be willing to allow the very people that we think we're helping to be on our board to check us in what we're doing? And then the third, ideas for doing our equity-focused work. Brooklyn called us out. When she was asked, how can we help you? Do you know she just subtly said, do your job. And how did she tell us? 19% of the adults who can vote voted her in Temecula. In Temecula. That was a call out. She says, model for us. If we could see you up there fighting the fight, you provide us a model. This was a child telling adults, if you think there's a problem, show up. Ezekiel, he says, embrace discomfort. Embrace it. There's a way to do it and still be respectful. Kaisha, Chris, Chapman, Terry, and Ben, that panel just basically said what? There are multiple ways to the promised land. Here you have sitting up here, different people with different focuses, but we're all trying to do the same work. And right before our eyes, I watched them bond together and start talking about how they're going to do work together, cross-culture. And then you cannot help but talk about Maeva. And I'm going to end with this. So Maeva says that when we talk about equity, it is something we have to use our lens with. It's not something that you just go out there and you just do it. I mean, you achieve it one day. I've done equity, let me just check it off. But it's the way you look at how you do your work and how you query yourself about, are you standing in the truth? And then I have to end with how we focus on our work. Pay Black women, please. Now, for anyone that's sitting in discomfort and you're asking yourself, well, why not pay other women? Why do we start with pay Black women? Because they're paid the least. And if you're never going to pay them, your pay won't go up either. So pay them. So that was what we learned from yesterday. Very powerful panels. So why are we up here to do the work that we're going to talk about? We're up here because we know that our children live whole lives. They're part of a family unit. That because they show up in kindergarten, we can't not discount what happened in the earlier years. And that we all need to know how we can align our work so that we can have bigger impact. There is a person, Audre Lorde, that says there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. We have to work as a collective. Development does not start in the higher grades. It starts on the day that we were born. Actually, it's born, even before that.
Right.
But we're not going to get into that today. But the overall well-being of our children, we must all work together. Our panelists are going to talk about how they work together, how they have worked across different areas. And so I have with you three amazing people. And we're going to start with Rachel Champagne, who is a regional director at Catalyst Kids, a statewide agency that has over 200 licensed and non-licensed programs, such as camps, and they serve over 2,600 children between 13 school districts. So she's going to talk about alignment across a particular program. And then we have Dr. Bernadette Pilar Zermeño, who is an adjunct faculty with EDvance College that specializes in transitional kindergarten programs and dual immersion programs. She also works within Oakland Unified as a multilingual specialist while also supporting teacher candidates at colleges in the Bay Area. Then we have Dr. Rigo Rodriguez, who is a Santa Ana Unified School District board member and a founder of the Santa Ana Early Learning Initiative, a parent-led, multi-stakeholder coalition dedicated to achieving better results for children prenatal to 8 and their families. This particular panel is going to be conducted in a different way. We're going to instead spend 10 to 12 minutes with each panelist talking about how they are doing the work on the ground. Before we do that, I'm going to build I'm going to tell a little bit about a group that I work with, which is the Whole Child Equity Project, which is facilitated by Catalyst, California, the group that is putting on this water cooler, and the Children's Partnership. This is a group that has been coming together for over 3 years. And this group is comprised of individuals from different content areas: ECE, K-12, mental health, behavioral health, family services. And they work across grades, everything from prenatal up until the 12th grade. As a group, we're just kind of like a hodgepodge of individuals. And it would look like that we would not have a lot in common. But what we have in common is looking at children as whole beings, whole child, whole family, whole community. And I have to say that this group has struggled with some of the things that were highlighted yesterday. And one of the things we have struggled with, and we've done it, I have to say, in the most graceful way, but with no nonsense, is race. Now think about this. How often have we been in meetings or in places where when race is brought up, you could feel the tension. Well, guess what? We leaned into the tension. We have talked about what it means to be African American, to be Latinx, to be, what does this all mean when we are listening to how one set of policies focus on one group and not the other group? We've talked about what it means to be the white person in a room when we're calling out their fragility. We've talked about what it means to be in a group and not in agreement with each other, because we're not monoliths. How to be African American and we have different agreements. Do we have this conversation in front of other people? Or do we go behind the scenes and call each other out? How black are you? Do you stand up for the group? We have struggled. But we struggled so we could actually talk about how do we now all come together and impact some particular thing as a group. And we landed in two places: infant maternal health and reparations. And again, starting from the group that is the farthest from the group. So think about the individuals who are working in the K-12 space talking about infant mortality, maternal health. We are talking about how it directly impacts the work when you get to the K-12 space. Who are those children who have been birthed through a stressful situation, where their mother did not get the kind of care that she deserved? For those children who survive that, when they show up as 3-year-olds, what does it look like? Mm-hmm. That's why we should care. We talk about the policies that we all should actually support. So even though it may appear that the person in the K-12 has no interest in this infant mortality or maternal health, you can see this is not my place, but I'm trying to be an ally, which I actually work on. How to be an ally. We see how we all can support each other in the work. So that's just one example of how we can work across different topic areas that may not be your topic area, but how do you become that ally to make sure we move the work?
That's powerful.
So now we're going to move to our panelists. That's just an example. And we're going to start with Rachel. And Rachel, again, is going to talk about what it means to move a program across multiple grades and ages. So Rachel, first question. Can you share about your, and remember, we're going to have Rachel for 10 to 12 minutes. A little different. So Rachel, can you share about your work and what you are doing to live into this vision to create alignment and connection across birth to third grade systems? And what are some of the benefits you found from your work in building bridges?
Sure. Excuse me. First, I'd like to say I'm also a First Five commissioner, and I need to thank you for talking about prenatal health. It's not discussed enough, and really our compromised communities need more access to prenatal health. So thank you for allowing me to do that PSA. And yes, it will affect the success of children in K-12. There's a lot of research about that. But back to your question, I've been working with the K-12 system in a unique way for maybe about 15 years. And the example I give that was my first introduction to being flexible with K-12 people is I remember a superintendent saying to me, "We need preschool on campus. We're impacted. We don't have space." And I said, "Yeah, how are we going to do that?" And what I say to other people when they're like, "How can you be innovative with a K-12 person?" I say, both of you need to be nimble. Both of you need to come to the table with true intentions that you are going to be just willing to try anything. If you're going to go to a table and meet with a superintendent that says, "No, that's not what we do," you're not going to be successful. And I will always be thankful to Dr. Dannenberg, Hueneme School District. He said, meet me in my office, we're gonna figure this out. And I thought, cool. So I show up, and he's got a waiting list of preschoolers. He doesn't know how to serve the preschoolers. And I said, what if we came in and used the kindergarten room after the kindergarten teacher left? He was like, she's not gonna like that, but that's what we're gonna do. And so we did it. I bought some carts, we wheeled it in, served preschoolers when kindergarten got out, and she started to see the impact that that was having. And so we got eventually a classroom to ourselves. And he said, yeah, but I've got 100 children on the waiting list. And I said, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna bring the funding. I've got state preschool money. You're gonna give me the space. You're gonna charge me $1 a year. And I'm gonna serve 24 children from 8 to 11. We're gonna do another group, 12 to 2. And here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a twilight. We're gonna do 3 to 6. Boom, you're gonna get 72 children served out of one classroom. And he said, nobody's gonna come for a twilight. And I said, let's try it. Packed. We were able to serve 72 4-year-olds, and I just needed one room. I could not have pulled that off if I didn't have the support of the kinder teacher and the support of the superintendent. Dr. Dannenberg said to his team, these are our children. They may not be in K-12 yet, but they're in our community. They're our children. That exploded. Did it all over Hueneme School District. We were able to have 4 classrooms and serve hundreds of children due to leadership and due to flexibility. The most recent example I can give is, the EC world has been rocked. We've lost all our 4-year-olds to TK. We don't have all our 4-year-olds anymore. And then at the same time, what happens with the state of California is you have expanded learning explodes. And expanded learning is not a choice for school districts. They don't apply for the money, they receive the money. And they're mandated to execute a 9-hour day for TKers on up. And I say to school districts, how are you gonna pull this off? And they say, not only do we not have the space, we don't have the workforce. And I say, I think I know of a partner. We can help. We'll do your 4-year-olds. We've got the staff. We used to do 4-year-olds. We'll do it. And I have somebody internally within Catalyst family who says, Rachel, that's non-licensed care. You can't do non-licensed care. And I was like, why not? And I was the person who was always in the community at LPs at local planning council or in community meetings saying, non-licensed care is the worst. Don't do it. But I had to shift. I had to say, no more, Rachel. Is that for the benefit of the communities for you to draw your line in the sand that you're not going to do licensed care? And thank goodness I shifted. I got people within our agency to shift, and now we serve over 2,000 children in the state of California under ELOP. But I needed certain partners to be flexible and not say that's not what we do. I needed internally for that to happen. I needed school districts for that to happen. And most importantly, I know this sounds cheesy, I needed Rachel to shift. I needed Rachel to check Rachel and say, your arrogance is not helpful. And you can do TK and 4-year-olds in ELOP, and you can do it well. So I had to kind of say to people, when in the community they say, you're doing non-licensed care, and I stand tall and I say I am, and we're doing it well. So how does that look for school districts? Because I'd like to talk about the practicality of it, like what you do. Here's what you do. We go into kindergarten rooms after the kindergarten teacher leaves, and we're doing ELOP in there. We're using the library. We've asked for a section of the cafeteria. We're being nimble because we know that children deserve a quality experience. And here's what else needs to be said that I don't hear enough, is low-income families deserve a choice. When I hear people say, don't worry, we don't need after school there, the Boys and Girls Club is there. The Boys and Girls Club's not running year-round. The Boys and Girls Club isn't open before school. The Boys and Girls Club is not serving breakfast. So that's what we have there. No, that's not right. Every child, every mom, every family deserves a menu to choose from. And so with ELOP coming on, more and more school districts have ACES, they have ELOP, they have the Y, they maybe have Catalyst, and that's important. That's important that we don't treat some communities with limited resources than other communities have access to. And so I will even, when I talk about ELOP to school districts, I'll say, buckle up, we're gonna do chess club, we're gonna do cooking club, we're gonna do soccer, we're gonna do drama, we're gonna do singing, because these children have a right to those resources.
So you shared a lot about just getting the work done, but you also raised there are some barriers. I'd like for you to just identify what is the one barrier.
There's not one barrier.
Okay,
I'm so
okay.
sorry. So let me.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
Not only, so with each barrier.
Some of you know me in the audience, and you're like, there she goes.
Oh no, this is good. With each barrier, give us a solution, because you are doing it.
Okay.
Okay.
So your barrier from the get is going to be have people at the table that are down to make this happen. Have people at the table that have the child and the family at the best interest and not others. Have people at the table that want to win and succeed at this. And have people at the table that aren't going to punish you if it doesn't work out. So I took a risk with that Twilight program, but I knew Dr. Dannenberg wasn't going to do this to me if I couldn't pull it off. He was my partner. He wanted what was best for the Hueneme community. If it didn't work out, we were going to find another way to serve the additional 24 children. And you need it to work internally. I was talking to some others this morning who were like, how do you have, our mission is to meet the gaps of every community of what they're needing. And how do you do that statewide? Well, to be honest with you, you need your internal departments to be in for it. So like when I talk to a courthouse and they're like, we need childcare, and I say, we can do your childcare for your families when they're in court, we'll do it. And the accounting department was like, Rachel, you did what? I said, what? We're gonna do a contract with the courthouse, and we're gonna provide childcare so families can go into court and not worry about childcare. And thank goodness I have an accounting department that says, okay, we're gonna figure this out. And I have a contracts department that's like, okay, let's run this through legal. So I can't go to the table and make this happen unless the infrastructure is gonna allow for execution. Because nothing's worse than going to a table and promising something to a K-12 system and getting it stopped because accounting can't figure out invoices. Or the HR department doesn't want your staff on the bus with special needs children. So you need the buy-in internally. So the barrier can be you want it, the K-12 system wants it, and yet you don't have the business infrastructure to execute. That can be a barrier.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Next, we have Bernadette, or Dr. Zermeño. So your question starts with, Bernadette is working within systems, but she's working across multiple grades, implementing some very important, not to say that all of our work's not important, but literacy work, DLL work, and across multiple grades. So your question, Bernadette, and whatever, okay, here we go. I told you guys I would stay with the questions, because I have other things I want to ask you, but I won't do it. Can you tell us about the work that you are doing, and we're going to start with Oakland Unified, the cross-grade work around literacy?
Yes, definitely. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. How's everyone doing? Yes, okay, we're still here. Awesome, thank you. Within OUSD, as within any district, there's multi different levels of ecosystems, right? I always call them ecosystems. I'm a scuba diver. I like going underwater. I like seeing all those different ecosystems. And one will not work without the other. So we need to understand within our district all those different multi-level ecosystems. And one important aspect within OUSD is that we hold the child at the center. The whole child is always there. Wherever their community is from, whatever language they speak, always at the center. And then our different ecosystems are around there supporting the child. We had a very unique opportunity to use the multilingual toolkit as one of a bridge to connect all of those different ecosystems. So within the multilingual toolkit, you have pre-K all the way through third, using different types of key strategies for oral language development, family engagement, or what I like to say, family partnership. We want to partner with families. So family partnership, oral language strategies, just all these different strategies within one click. It's so nice. And we said, we are going to use this toolkit to really align across all grade levels. And none of this work is just on one person within our ecosystem. There are so many people I could shout out right now, but that list would go on and on within the district. Within that toolkit, we were able to partner with Lead by Learning, which is an outside group that focuses on inquiry work. Because we know if we give the tools to the teacher, that the work is going to happen. Our teachers know what is happening on the ground. So within our inquiry work, we were able to bring in together pre-K through 5th grade teachers. This is a first, right? And I love shift that thought, because sometimes you hear K through 12, but really let's say early learning to 12, right? Change that language so we're all included. Because we know that pre-K early learning, they're like, oh, they're over there. Right? Oh, I see them in the little portable. There's early learning. We're K through 5th, right? But within our systems, let's use that inclusive language and let's model it too. Does your audio match your visual? Are you inviting your early learning to the meetings, to the PD? Are you adjusting your PD times to make sure that they can attend? Because we know those in early learning, that time, they're sometimes off at 4, 5, 6 p.m. So how do your PDs within that system actually allow for them to be there? Are you paying with a stipend? Are you providing food and childcare for our teachers? Because we know in elementary, there's a lot of teachers that have little ones too. So they're not gonna attend, oh, I'm sorry, I have to go home, I have to make dinner, I have to do this, I have to do that. So ensuring that your system allows for the teachers to attend. So, for the first time, we brought in all of these teachers, pre-K through 5th. We're thinking, what is your inquiry work? What do you want to learn? How do you support your DLs, your language learners? How do you support your multilingual learners? Using this multilingual toolkit, it's our tool. It's one of those third data points, right? We're not focusing on exactly what we're doing within the classroom, but focusing how can we make this strategy alive in our classroom. So for the first time ever within our district, we had pre-K through 5th grade teachers coming together, and then we invited the high school teachers. And guess what? This was like that aha moment for those of you who are educators, and a little child comes up to you and they're like, guess, teacher, cat, hat, they rhyme. And you're like, yes, they rhyme, of course. And then within that pre-K 12, you had the high school teachers sit back and they're like, wait, that's a really good idea from the pre-K teachers. That's a great idea. Like, why didn't I think of that? Visual schedules for high schoolers and newcomers? Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm gonna use those sentence frames in high school. That could be helpful with our newcomers, the ones who just arrived. And also you had the pre-K teachers looking at the high school teachers and saying, oh, I get it now. I understand the trajectory. I understand what I need to do within pre-K, TK, kinder to support my 12th graders, because I didn't know they needed to know that. So we created a system, a new ecosystem, where all of these strategies were talked about, teachers felt comfortable. There was discomfort, right? There was a lot of discomfort in the room, but we came together and talked about how do we always hold the child at the center? How do we make sure that that is working? Then another wonderful, without Maria Sujo in OUSD, this wouldn't be possible. There was this idea, how do we bring in the children that are most marginalized outside of our communities, that don't even understand how to get to school, right? For those of you who have seen enrollment packets, and if you haven't, go to the districts. They're like this thick, right? Huge enrollment packets. Or you have at least 20 pages on your computer. That's hard. How do we remove that barrier within a district or within all of your districts to really support our families to come to the table, to learn about school? So with the support of our early childhood programs, we have a family navigator within all of our preschools. And guess what? This family navigator is usually bilingual, multicultural. They come in, they see the family, hello, welcome, in their home language. What school are you planning to attend? How can I help you? Do you want to meet? Like, I could text you, I could email you, whatever, whatever. These family navigators come out, they sit with the family for a very long, long time because we know those packets, and they help the families understand each of those questions. Also, at our enrollment center, Oakland's very diverse. 1 in 3 students is a multilingual learner, and one of the most diverse districts, other than Hayward, California, I think. Very diverse. And our enrollment center makes sure that all of the languages are present. So we ensure that we have interpreters. We have a huge Hmong-speaking population. So we have interpreters that speak Hmong, Spanish, lots of different languages, because we want to support our 0 to 5 having quality access education, and especially the ones who are most marginalized. So we go deep into the community. Hey, have you enrolled your child? How can we help you? What centers do you need? What schools do you want? Do you want dual immersion? Do you want English only? We're here to support. So I think having those family navigators has been a huge success within our district to really bring in enrollment. We are seeing our enrollment go up. I think it went up over like 50% this last year because of that support from the family navigators. And just really thinking about that shifting of language, making sure that we include all of our teachers and having the systems to include them.
Thank you. So Bernadette just described the work that is going on across the grades in the district, but she's also been part of some work that is happening within some CBOs. And this work aligns also within the district. Without starting a big controversy, though I do like throwing rocks on occasion, the tension between CBOs and the rollout of TK is real. But there are still places where the work that the CBOs who are serving preschoolers and district can still do together. And Bernadette has been part of some of that work through a literacy lens. Can you tell us just a little bit about that work that is happening jointly with CBOs and the district with aligning curriculum around literacy?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Seeds.
Yes, definitely. There's lots of literacy programs within our pre-K through third, pre-K through third in supporting just that alignment across. We use Seeds of Learning, which now is like creative, collaborative classroom. We're that multilingual toolkit, really looking at the different strategies from 0 all the way up to 3rd and 5th. Like, how do we support that literacy development across all grade levels? Really looking at that vertical and horizontal alignment. And as we know, it's hard to get everybody at the table. But when we have that whole child at the center, we know that we bring in Office of Equity, we bring in the literacy department, we bring in the early learning department, we bring in the dual language department to have and sit at that round table and really think about the solutions and different strategies to help our little ones.
And also in Oakland, you have your Head Start programs, some in your private childcare, as well as the district preschool that are working through and using the same curriculum and have some of the same trainers working across the different agencies. And Bernadette was part of that.
Yes, so we work closely with Oakland Starting Smart and Strong, which brings in all of our family childcare, all of our preschools, Head Starts, and as much as possible, we're trying to align those curriculums using the multilingual toolkit as a strategy, because if we know they're singing songs in pre-K, they're gonna also be singing it up until 5th grade. So really thinking about that alignment as much as possible and building the partnerships with your family childcare, with your community, with your families. And our families are our first teachers. So having them also train with us, having them show how to do this. For example, we have a family night, and it's a once a month family night to where we invite our families. When I say parents, I mean caregivers, parents. One of the biggest topics right now is, how do I support my dual language learner? How do I support my little ones? Because I'm hearing at school and at the doctor that they might get confused if I speak Spanish only at home, or if I speak Mandarin and then they're learning English. So we brought in parents, because parents know, right? Parents are amazing. And parents came in and shared their struggle of making sure that we still maintain that home language, right? Because we're continuously fighting that societal language of English. Not fighting, but building. And so how, as a parent, what are some strategies that I can use and do to support my child developing their home language? Because we know the stronger the home language, the easier, with explicit instruction, will transfer over into learning English. So having the parents share out, like, yes, it's hard, but this is what I do. And we had a Vietnamese speaker, a Thai speaker, a Burmese speaker, and a Spanish speaker parent come in and share with a community of over 200 parents, like, this is what I'm doing at home, this is what's possible. So it's not always us, the ones with the doctorates, the ones with all this, like, we have expertise, yes, but it's easier to hear from other parents that what they're doing at the home.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've heard about working across a particular program, working across different systems and different providers. Dr. Rodriguez shared with everyone the work as a board member, but also with this early learning hat on, how your organization, your district is working not only across departments within the district, but also working with CBOs outside of the district to solve some problems to collectively in a multi-generational way.
Thank you, Carla, and thank you to Rachel and Bernadette also for being up here, sharing the work that we're doing. I do want to share a little bit about myself so that you can see the perspective I'm about to share with you as a board member. So first, I'm the youngest of 13 of a Mexican migrant family from the Salinas Valley. And I have over 150, almost 200 nephews, nieces, grandnieces, nephews. So every time I'm in a space like this, it's like eating pozole at my mom's house on a Sunday when everybody's hungover. I know some of you were partying last night. I was part of it, I think, upstairs. But I bring this up because I have such a large, complex family that it's actually prompted me to actually be a faculty member in the field of Chicana and Latinx studies. And I am the chair of the Department of Chicana and Latinx Studies at Cal State Long Beach, where I've been working alongside my colleagues in the Africana Studies Department, American Indian Studies Department, and the Asian American Studies Department, so that we can really build multiracial solidarity, at least curricula that really builds multiracial solidarity. And I start with that because, Carla, you started off with some really powerful, everything you said is powerful, and the thing that really spoke to me is when you said, pay Black mothers and workers and women, pay them well, right? In a way that we don't have to then get into the scarcity mentality and saying, what about us, right? Scarcity is forced upon us, but we don't have to use the scarcity mentality to undermine each other's work, right? And so I say that because in what I'm about to share as a board member, I specifically chose, when I graduated from college, to live in a city, Santa Ana, that is predominantly Mexican-American, but that has been segregated that way. So as a person who got a PhD in geography and urban geography, we're segregated either as single ethnic groups, generally speaking, or as low-income folks multi-ethnically. Does that make sense? So I chose to be in a space that is specifically and primarily Latinx, right? And as a school board member, I've been trying to think about the ways in which we can galvanize and leverage the prenatal to third grade as a racial justice strategy. So that's the big picture on my end. The Santa Ana Unified School District has, by the way, a wonderful superintendent, Jerry Almendares, who's here joining me. So you talk about having a good relationship with the superintendent, as I'll say later on, that is a fundamental element in being able to move this forward. So flew up here, his plane got delayed, but he stayed on. I said, you can leave now, abort mission, but no, he stayed on the plane and he came. So Santa Ana Unified School District used to be the 6th largest school district in the state of California, but due to our declining enrollments, we've gone from 53,000 to about 38,000 in the course of the last 8 years. We are in a very affluent area, Orange County, or what we call the Deep South. And folks are exiting, right? And we're now the 11th largest school district. We are 95%, 96% Latine. 87% of our students qualify for free and reduced meal programs, and 80% of our entering kindergartners are classified as English language learners. Overall, it's 45%. So that's the statistics, right, of our school district. And so when I think about the work that we're doing here in Santa Ana, it has resonance statewide, or at least I wish it does, and I hope it does, and that's why being here in this space that Catalyst California is convening, right? Because this is a space where we can talk about racial justice in abundant ways rather than, let's give them a round of applause. I think this is so rare for us to be able to be up here and lean into the racial justice work, right? 56% of the students in California are Latine in K-12. 40% of all school districts are Latine majority in California, and half of those Latina students are over 75%, right? So we have to, I think about how this question of how do we get a K-12 system to see itself as a prenatal to K, right, has deep implications for my community, and as we lift up this community, we also lift up other communities, well, same as we do with other communities as well. So in answering this question around what we're doing in Santa Ana, we're basically implementing 2 strategies, one of which is focused on what we can control because we're a vertically integrated organization, and the other strategy is around what we can't control but we can influence, right? What we can control within our system and what we can't control but we need to influence. The one strategy around what we can control is what I call the internal bridge building, and that's focused on the prenatal, in particular to 3rd grade. So I'm just going to focus on 2 things that we're doing there, because there's a lot of work that we're doing as well. So one is preschool, just as Bernadette mentioned. So in 2015-16, the year before I started on the school board, we have 56 schools, 33 of them are elementary schools, but only 8 of those schools had preschools, 8 out of the 33. But from 2016, when I got on board, not just because of me, but you'll see later on, but through board governance, and we are now at 31 out of the 33 schools have preschools. We started off with 312 slots, now we have 1,560 slots, combination of full-time and half-time, right? We transformed all of our Head Start programs into state preschools, maintaining the high quality of the instruction, but the eligibility is more generous there, so we now have more people that can qualify. We lifted the wages of preschool teachers through our role in the budget, and we have invested heavily in making sure that there's a culture of integration in our school district and in every site. And as you'll see later on, we've embedded that in the evaluation of our principals and our superintendent, right? Those are things we can't control. We also have, on the other side, in addition to giving students access to preschool, high-quality preschool, we're also making sure that families have access to resources because we believe in the two-generation model. Right? Families aren't strong in their economic and other kinds of resources, it affects the students' well-being. There we established and opened a wellness center in every school. We have a family and community engagement liaison, a FACE liaison at each school that works with parents to identify not just the needs, but the assets. And around that, we identify what they need at each site and then build the partnerships through our district, all the MOUs and whatnot. And those wellness centers are open to everyone in that neighborhood, even if you don't have a child enrolled in that neighborhood, right? And that's really important for families with children 0 to 3 who don't think the school serves them yet, right? And now we combine, whenever we do kinder roundups, we do preschool roundups, so that it's also the preschool outreach workers that are working with our FACE liaisons, and now parents are involved in these roundups. So that's work that we're doing on things we can control. There's more stuff that we're doing, like on AI work. Jerry is a leader in that nationally around AI and making sure that our parents are learning about AI and all that stuff. Around the area, the second strategy around things we can't control but need to influence, that's what we call external bridge building. There, we have actively supported a parent-led community-based coalition called the Santa Ana Early Learning Initiative, or SALE. I am the founder of that, but I'm not victim to the founder syndrome. And I have let go. There's other folks running that and doing amazing work, much better than what I did back in the day. But it is a coalition of over 250 parents that are affiliated to 24 elementary schools. So they do their work at the elementary school. They know each other, they work with each other, they see each other's kids, but they also join together. We have over 25 organizations. We used to have 50, but 25 of those really didn't get it, so they eventually left because they were there just for the money. And eventually we really landed on 25 solid organizations that really believe in the values. I'm almost done, Carla. But the reason we need to have this kind of coalition is this, that we need independent, autonomous, community-based coalitions that are moving this. Why? Because in districts, the political winds shift every 2 years with elections. And when you have a new majority that doesn't believe in this, you still need to have a community-grounded folks that really embrace and own a broader agenda. And then the other thing is the school district can't control what the county Department of Health does or what the city does, right? But those same folks that are involved in that coalition do have the capacity to demand and services for their children. So along those lines, for example, this very, very active set of parents were able to join various coalitions and force the city to pass the first ever ordinance for rent control and just cause eviction, right? They were also able to force the city to approve a master plan in parks, to expand parks in a very park-poor area that was designed that way. And now we're also creating playful learning landscapes with installations in those parks that really promote language and STEM and so forth. So the district basically provides a lot of support in terms of, like, we'll pay for the buses, the food, for all the monthly trainings, the interpretation and all that, and our staff members helping with the co-design of a lot of the leadership development activities. So those two are the basic strategies. There's a lot more stuff that we're doing beyond the things that I just mentioned, but I think that gives you an orientation around the two things that a district can do. Whatever you can control vertically, right? And then things you can't control and you shouldn't, but you can support and influence, so that there is a very active coalition in your city or your place that can hold our systems accountable and maintain integrity to an agenda, right? That can go beyond what the district. And the other thing is the district shouldn't be responsible for everything, right? Because the whole child needs to be, the needs of a whole child need to be addressed by the range of public agencies that have responsibility for that, so.
I feel compelled to add on something, and I'll be quick. What you talk about is the rigidity, understandably, of the K-12 system. There are rules and regulations they can't dance around. That is why you bridge with CBOs. Mm-hmm. That is exactly why you bridge with CBOs, because we can we can be more flexible. We don't have for the most part, the constraints that a K-12 system has. If you've got a gap in your delivery system for your community, reach out to the CBOs and see if they can fill that gap.
And that's actually a great segue into a question that I can ask everyone. And I'm going to push back a little bit on this idea that the system is rigid. We are the system. So who really is the rigidity? Do we use rules as a way to not do what we need to do? And that goes back to this lens. I know personally, when I worked within a district, I would go find some rule that I could go tell somebody, that I could tell them, we have to do this for this reason. But do we sometimes use those rules really not to do the work? So I'm going to ask each one of you this question. If you had a challenge for the group about how to work now across different grades, across different content areas, being across different departments, so we may put the child in front of us. Provide us with what is the challenge do you have for us and to the group about what we need to do. So I'm going to start.
Well, Carla, you gave me the answer at the very beginning. Culture eats rules, and not the policy, eats rules for lunch and for breakfast and for dinner.
And snack.
And snacks it, yeah. And so I think for us, it's that mental model that we are just a K-12, right? So what we've done is we have worked really heavily with the superintendent and the superintendent's team. Like the change, like if you have an orientation towards this work, then you'll change. You'll interpret the rules flexibly, or you'll change the rules so that you can achieve, right? But if you're not focusing on that cultural piece, you can only go as a board member. We have a majority. I had a majority the first 4 years. Now it's all 5 of us connected to so we have a 5-0 majority supporting this direction. But if you don't have a culture that understands the why, it's just a fight all the way, versus at least we all know we're in sync. And again, if anybody is interested after this session, our superintendent, Armendariz, and I would be happy to talk to you about the grueling details of that. But once you make that shift, I think things move much faster. But that would be my biggest, the biggest obstacle I think that we've dealt with.
Okay.
Yeah, I think often about culture, think often about how to really get the right people at the table. And then you think about something you said in regards to like cultural and histories and what we are learning. So we're often pitted, we're often fighting against each other as people of color, to where really we should be building, and even our stories sometimes do not come together, or there's only one story that is heard and published and put in our children's books, right? So how do we come together as a community of like different races, right? Different cultures, different communities, different stories, to really align and build. And I keep going back to that discomfort, right, within the rules. You're gonna feel discomfort because there's been a set of rules always put on top of us from other systems, and we won't name all those other systems, but really pushing against those rules and coming together as communities to find our commonalities within those differences. And just having the right people at the table. What you said about making sure you can maybe not fail, I don't like that word, but it might not work, right? But how do we push our system to think differently? Right now, even within this pre-K through 3rd credential, how are we gonna get our pre-K teachers to do 400 hours in a classroom 1st through 3rd? So how do we like really find solutions that benefit our people, benefit our communities, and always holding them at the center? And not being afraid to be like, okay, if this doesn't work, at least we tried. We're pushing against a system constantly, and how do we just really come together to ensure those changes are happening?
Before you answer, Rachel, what both of you raised is the issue of scarcity and how scarcity is used to pit groups against each other. Now think about this. We're all fighting to do the same thing, but for some reason we believe only one can get it at a time. Lean into this challenge around how do we move past scarcity? Because right now, our state is talking about $78 billion deficit. So what that causes us to do is retrench. I worked with an amazing superintendent, Carlos Garcia, and I remember having this conversation with him. I was complaining. I was in his office going, and excuse my language, but this is exactly what I said to him. What the hell is TK? So this is when TK they were first talking about it, and I'm like, I'm coming down from the state of Washington. I'm like, I've never heard of it. What is it? And he basically told me, that's why we hired you. You go figure it out. That's exactly what he told me. But he then said something else. He said, during times of discord, during times of turmoil, people do one of three things. They do nothing, or they double down on doing what they're always doing. They just do more of it. Or they get creative, because that's the time to make some serious change. So I want you to just think through this. We need to push ourselves. We're here talking about equity. We've been here, I have to tell you, we've been here 20 years ago? 40 years ago? What is the true challenge about getting us not to be afraid to push the envelope?
Rachel, what do you think?
Because I know Rachel's going to tell us.
Well, come on. I'm just going to say something a little different. If you're a K-12 provider in this room, I invite you to reflect back to the pandemic. Research showed the communities that fell back the most were at the at-risk communities, were the most vulnerable. So you're a K-12 provider, a world pandemic hits, schools shut down, cafeterias shut down, teachers are ticked. What would you have wanted in that time? Because I had a big learning and our communities had a big learning, guess what? You guys needed us. We were the diaper drop-off, the pickup. We were the food bank.
Computers.
I hired extra staff to help children get on internet that weren't even enrolled with us. We were the hub to where to go, what clinic can help my child. We were open. We were open from 5:30 in the morning to 6 at night. And I invite K-12 people and CBO people to think about what gaps did you find in the pandemic, work on those relationships so that you're not developing relationships in chaos. You already have them formed so that when chaos hits, execution happens. But if you wait to build relationships when you need us, it's going to take more time. And so I don't mean us, I mean any CBO, any other agency that's not a K-12 system. I guarantee you will need them at some point. And I just ask K-12 people, stop thinking in silos and start thinking as communities. Because if a community can gather all the resources, that's when we meet the whole child. And that's when we bridge cultural gaps. So the K-12 system doesn't have to be in a silo. Some of us are out here waving our hands, wanting to help. We were calling kindergarten teachers at home saying, okay, we're trying to figure out this homework. And that's when they wanted us. I just beg K-12 and CBOs to work on partnerships before crisis hits.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what you said is all about relationships and really creating those relationships before and throughout the day. I was thinking in regards to your question, when there is chaos or when there is scarcity, it's really important to think about different solutions as much as possible. So having, and uniquely my position is completely this out of the box thinking to where it's like, we want to bridge the K through high school system with the early childhood system. So we're gonna hire you to try to build those relationships across, to understand what the family child care providers are doing, what is early childhood, how is that gonna work? So really think about someone that could live across all of those systems within your district, within your community, to break down those silos and to bring together those ecosystems.
Any last words?
Yeah, so I can't remember, I've been a board member for 8 years, and I can't remember a year where we haven't been told there's less money than what we need. Right?
Always.
So we're always on this, scarcity discourse. And I think if we think it's a lack of money, I think we're already caught up in the problem. And the other piece is that if we're just thinking about this from a system-centric perspective, like just the school district, I think we're also part of the problem, right? So I really agree with you all. It's about relationships, but also about how do we make sure that we're always, as school districts, supporting the community-based efforts for social justice and racial justice. I mean, there's a lot of collaboratives, and a lot of collaboratives are issue-centered, and that's about efficiency of services and things like that, but they never develop a consciousness, a justice-oriented consciousness. And so for me, those are the networks that we need to connect with as school districts, networks that are doing, again, what the Community Coalition is doing in South LA and Proyecto Pastoral in East LA and all these other organizations that are really about making sure that we don't get caught up in a discourse of scarcity, but rather always realize that we have that power to make abundance in our communities, right? So I think that's maybe my message to, and I started off as a community organizer, by the way. That's how I started. I still see myself as a community organizer. I just happen to think about that in the context of the board role that I have, so.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll end this by doing a couple of things, and one, I'm gonna throw out a challenge to everyone, and I'm gonna throw out this challenge based on my experience of working with the Whole Child Equity Project partnership. And please know that the way I talk about this is based on my experience with being in the group, which has been amazing. But one of the things we did, and this is my challenge to you, one, we're in an opportunity. We are being told there's scarcity, and I'm sure that there is, it's less than, if you only look at scarcity as money, but the resources and the opportunity we have to partner with others and leverage what resources we do have is now. But to do that, we have to be able to challenge something. And this is what we did in our Whole Child Equity Project partnership. We challenged what safe space was. What is a safe space? Is a safe space is used to say, now I have discomfort? And at what expense? So for someone to be safe, if I have something to say that is going to hurt your feelings, do I keep it to myself because you don't feel safe now? So we challenged what that was. And at what expense are we asking people who actually are not normally the ones who we are supposed to be helping to be quiet about their pain so you can feel okay? Mm-hmm. That's what we're asking when we ask for a safe space. You're asking for the victim to help the victimizer be okay. So we challenged what that meant. So I would ask you, as you build these coalitions, look into where the power sits. School districts, that's basically what we're calling out. You hold a lot of power. So when you are now going to engage in a community, you need to be aware of that. And you need to be able to flip that. and think about what it means to create that space where you can have true dialogue. That's my challenge to the group. Redefine and rethink through with your partners what you believe a safe space is. And when we can do that, we can now start talking about what it looks like for the people or children or families we're trying to serve. I think we're going to do a Slido. So what I want you to do is look at the QR code real quick here. And all I want you to do is 1 or 2 words that come to mind after hearing from this panel. Just 1 or 2 words. And we're going to do this quickly so we can move to our keynote. And I'm going to try real hard not to drool because what she has to share is just awesome. So I want all of you to put your laptops down. You know us, we be multitasking. Put your phones down and be prepared to be wild.
And can I ask us to give Carla an applause? Because you wowed me throughout the whole time.
Yeah.
And just the way you've anchored us. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you.
We're all in this together.
Oh, I like messy.
So the words we're seeing,
Messy.
partnership, collaboration, hopeful, leverage. Let's be thoughtful, mind-blowing, bridging, abundance. I'm going to lean into abundance. I didn't know I was poor until someone told me so.
Yeah.
Let's stop letting people define who we are. I love that. Messy. Yeah, this work is messy. If any of you are in a relationship with anybody other than yourself, it's messy. I'm just telling you. Me and my partner have been together 25 years, and I still keep my mouth closed about her mother. It's messy. I love my mother-in-law. She would not appreciate that. But lean into these words, and thank you.